that it? Okay. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, send out your Spirit. Pour your Spirit down upon us. Show us your love. Show us your mercy. And give us hope. Holy Mother, place your mantle upon us. As we guide, as we go into this lesson, guide us. Lead us. And help us to see the truth, even in the difficulties. We pray this and we pray the prayer that Jesus himself gave us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. We are starting the last segment of this series. This is not the end of TOB. This is just the introduction, if you will. Yeah, the introduction. Okay, before we start this, I want to say this gets really rough and it gets really ugly. I don't know people in here very much at all. None of this is personal, even if it seems like it is. Almost all of us will see ourselves in this somewhere because it's that universal. So even though it's hard, even though it's tough, this is just showing how bad things went wrong. But it is not specifically aimed at anybody in here or anybody you know or might have known or your parents, anybody. This is a very generic approach. So part of the review. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Okay. That's one of what they call the curses. And then we have these attributes of an ideal husband. This does not necessarily mean this is the perfect man you imagine. The way John Paul II tries to describe it is a near psychosis in the psyche of a woman. These are things she's going to demand. It's just there. It's just part of her being.
It's what she needs.
She needs a lover, a companion, provider. Now this is through life, especially with children. Protector, helper, co-worker, one who is chaste, faithful, and exclusive, and one who will provide for growth. I didn't come up with these. These were built from the ladies that were in my classes. So anybody here see something that's missing that you think is very important? Yes?
We were taught one at training, and it was the 4 P's. It was provider, protector, patient, and priest. Priest, quotation marks,
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah.
But just like the father of the church and the household, in a way.
Right. Yeah. And again, the priest. This is I mean, that would come under that would actually. Well, I could get into some really. I'm gonna leave that for Christopher West. Okay. If I get into that, it's going to be a real big rabbit hole. Okay, but for the most part, you want these in some way, shape, or form pretty much all the time. And if you don't get them, that's an uneasiness. That's something missing. That's something not right. Again, like I talked at the very beginning, there's these echoes from the garden that are still with us. It's not right children should die. It's not right we should have slavery. It's not right. And yet we've had them throughout all history. I mean, if it was just part of like natural selection, there would be nothing not right about it, other than initially it wasn't that way. Well, initially, this was available. And that's one of those things that's left. It's an echo, if you will, of the garden. Man will use her desire for a husband as leverage to manipulate her. That's original sin working. We'll get into this. He will treat her as an object instead of a person made in the image of God. Okay? We love people, we use things, not the other way around. If we use people, we're doing the wrong thing. And again, the reason why is this curse. Because you've listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat it all the days of your life. He was working before, now it's toil. What's the difference between work and toil? If you don't want to work, it's toil. If you do want to work, it's recreation. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth to you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. Okay, this is a quote from John Paul II that's kind of like the nutshell of theology of the body. I'm putting that here. I'll put it again at the end, because in this one extremely complex sentence, he basically condenses, if you will, the entire theology of the body, which is a massive book. Man cannot live without love. Understand, that's mankind, that's all of us. We cannot live without love. Is that true? Is that true? Anybody ever hear of, what was that called? Devil's Island? It was a French penal colony in French New Guinea, okay, in South America. Very severe. It was called Devil's Island for a reason. They would kill men by putting them in solitary confinement. And they had no contact with anybody. Virtually no one lived more than a year. Their food would be shoved under the door. And they got to stick their head out like once a month to be shaved and have their hair cut. But there could be no communication, and they could talk to nobody. And if you tried, you'd be stopped. And you're literally in a hole. No one hardly ever lived more than a year. Hardened criminals.
They had a sign over the gate into the compound, and it says, "Abandon hope, all you who enter here."
It was a vicious, horrible place. He remains a being that is incomprehensible to himself. His life is senseless. Now I have the little 3 dots here because I can't cram it all into one slide without it being unreadable. His life is senseless if love is not revealed to him, if he does not encounter love, if he does not experience it and make it his own, and if he does not participate intimately in it. That's really complicated, okay? But it's a big sentence. But he's basically trying to hit all the bases. In other words, we don't live without love, but we don't know what love is until somehow or another we see it or experience it. Because it's one of those words that we talk about a lot, we really don't know what it means. That is why Christ the Redeemer fully reveals man to himself. Okay, that's our launching place. So, relationships without grace. This again, these are very vague, they're very generic, they're, very, very general, not specific, but very comprehensive. I mean, it really is kind of how stuff works. So we're starting out, and again, this is without grace. When God gets in there and there's love involved, things change. But if you don't, because what is love? It's one of the 3 theological virtues. It's infused. Love, faith, hope, and love are the infused theological virtues. They're gifts from God. So the woman has a desire for a husband. The man has no desire to work. Beginning point. Now again, let's just go back early youth, whatever, early adolescence. The woman wants a man to respond to her. So women use charm. Okay, what is it? I mean,
They giggle.
They giggle. I mean, there's just things that attributes that women have that are attractive to men or can be. I mean, it's their conversation, their just general enthusiasm, their personality. Okay, they try to focus first on the personality to guys. Now, I don't know if anybody has to tell you this, but for most of the guys, okay, it's casual, but so what, you know? Have a conversation, then he'll go out with the guys. But he sees no reason to commit to this woman for any reason. And again, for a man, commitment is the same thing as work. So the relationship may start to develop. The woman flaunts her beauty. Okay, women have certain physical attributes that guys tend to notice. Okay, I don't want to get into this too deep, but they're there. Is there anything wrong with those? No, they're God-given. You're supposed to be. But now he notices sexual attraction. Very, very powerful. And now she realizes the power of sex appeal, so she can turn it on. He's now very attracted. I'm just going to use just a generic example. He is very attracted to her, but it's physical only. Only her physical beauty. Now, is that completely wrong? And we call that lust. But when I was attracted to Rozanne, when I first met her, was it just because I was lusting after her? Actually, no. Even though I thought she was darn good looking. But I was attracted to her because she was just different from what I was used to. But she also happened to be very pretty. But I saw her beauty. Okay, I saw her beauty right away. That attraction is like placed in us by God. And again, it's one of those things I tell people. The reason God makes sexual attraction so powerful is it's virtually the only thing we have in common with men and women. I mean, we're so different. I mean, we're different planets, we're different places and all that, but we both can have this attraction. It's like if you didn't have that attraction, we'd be done. You know, human race would end right away. She still wants commitment. He wants minimal commitment. Okay, I'm going to get involved with her. But, you know, I like putting my toe in the pool. I'm not going to jump in. So now you have the relationship continue to develop. She's enjoying the attention, but she wants more. Why? Because it's not enough. He begins to see this and says, okay, maybe I can take advantage of this. This is without grace. She allows more intimacy, and every time she allows more intimacy, she's able to get smaller levels of commitment from him. You know, you do this, you do, you know, stuff like, you know, don't call me hoe, you're hoe, okay, to your brows. Oh, okay, I mean, big, you know, not big levels of commitment, something anyway. She still wants commitment, he wants minimal commitment. We're at odds. And let's just say we get to the point to where we have full sexual intimacy. He's attained his original goal. He is done. She hopes it will generate her ideal of a husband. Now, there is a truth in that sexual intercourse in love, well, the way the church tries to say it is it's for babies and for bonding. When a couple has sexual intercourse, there is actually chemical things that happen in their brain where you bond to that person deeper. And in fact, they've done studies on men, because men have compartmentalized brains. It's easier to find it. For the women, it's harder. That after a man comes back from a honeymoon, if you mention his wife's name, the part of his brain that's his identity will light up. She's actually become part of him in his mind, physically in his mind. However, He views it as maximum commitment. He's done what he needed to do. He got what he wanted. He's gone down. He's negotiated. He's argued with the car dealer, and he's bought the car. He's got the keys. He's driven it off the lot. He's done. He's happy just as it is, and she is dissatisfied. She wants full commitment. Now, the relationship begins to degenerate. She still has a desire for the husband. He still wants minimum work. The way the original sin's working, nothing's changed. She needs to find a way to resolve her need for commitment. How is she going to do this? Well, she's going to try many tactics. He will use this need to generate domination if he's really a creep.
Really without grace.
Really without grace. So, making Amanda to the husband, how do you go about? Persuasion. That's like the first thing to try. Help him to understand you need him to be there. You need to be a part of my life. You need to be doing this stuff. If he's a good man, he'll listen. If there's no grace in it, it still sounds like a lot of work. It's one of those, if I give you an inch, are you going to take a mile? The next is pleading. After pleading, you go begging. You're really trying to get across to him how absolutely necessary these needs are for him to fill it. You're wanting it to work.
Doesn't he look interested?
Yeah, isn't he just absolutely fascinating? We're starting to get into a problem here. And we'll get to it when I get there. After begging, you're fighting. You're arguing. You're going face to face. Is that a problem? What happens when you go face to face to a man? You trigger testosterone, fight or flight. Okay? So when you start fighting, he's going to dig in even more. And then finally, the big one, nagging. The big guns. Once you go to nagging, it's going to go down the hill fast. Because if there's anything that guys can't stand, it's constantly being nagged about it. It's gone from being kind of a relationship, emotional type thing to just almost Mortal Kombat. But instead of getting the cooperation, this is very much triggering testosterone. And instead of getting the cooperation you want from the man, you're going to get something more like this. Okay? He's shutting down completely. Okay, we're going to war. Now the relationship breaks down. Now I have it done with basically 5 large categories. They overlap. They can be in any order. You can have all of them. You can have one of them. It doesn't matter. First thing you can do is just break up. The breakup can happen anywhere in a relationship. You can break up like very early. Okay. You can break up later. You can break up after 30 years of marriage. Isolation. We'll get into unpack these later. Uneasy peace. Abuse. And then finally, the abandonment of the ideal. So let's look at these one at a time. Breakup. You were together. You were a couple. You were happy at one time. Things have gotten bad. You split and go your ways. If it's done early, it's painful. If it's done later, it's more painful. If it's done much later, when there's like children, it's very painful. But either way, you're going to carry that baggage with you into the next relationship because it leaves wounds. When you're intimate with somebody and when you've really given yourself to somebody and then it fails, you carry that with you. And you carry that into the next relationship. And it tends to make you very hard because if something gets there, it's like it was before, then you pull back. You build walls. You have something, Mom?
Anybody ever glued their fingers together with super glue? And how you
Usually the guys go, yeah. Women never do this. The guy, oh, yeah, I do.
you know, you.
Yeah, the stuff, the
when
super
you
glue.
pull the super glue, when you pull it apart, you lose skin.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Part of your skin
And
stays
then
on that side.
when it grows back, you've got a callus.
Yeah.
That's what happens emotionally when you break up, especially after kids.
It's never a good thing. And yet at the same time, it may be such a bad relationship, it needs to happen anyway. But regardless, whenever that breakup occurs, there's heartbreak, there's pain. And that pain basically will go with you the rest of your life. The second one is isolation. This one's a little stranger. You stay together, but there's no communication, there is no commitment, and there is no progress. Yes?
Have you seen the movie Fireproof?
Yes.
Fireproof?
Fireproof?
Yes.
Fireproof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, like, their relationship is falling apart. And they're even sleeping in 2 separate rooms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the isolation. The women, well, let me click it on here. Women tend to feel isolation worse than men. Now, there was a psychologist here named Dr. Mango. What women fear the most is to be alone. What men fear the most is to fail. And that works into this too. But a woman that is alone, even if she's in a relationship with the man, but he's cold, he's distant, he's just not there for her. He goes to work, doesn't want her to leave the apartment. Doesn't want to go anyway. So she goes someplace, she has to come back. She's got to be there for him, but there's no give and take. He's like dominating her. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all kinds of psychological problems. This is brutal. And if a woman gets trapped in this, it's hard to get out. It's just hard, unless somebody comes in and intervenes and like yanks her out of it. I don't know why. But when they get trapped in this, I've known arrangements like this.
Well, they start feeling like they deserve
It's their fault. It's their fault. Yeah, I deserve this. If I was better, he wouldn't be doing this. And that's, again, part of the lie of the whole thing. Again, you can have breakup after this. But this is just one, you just can't live this way. Yes?
So I can understand how. Okay, I've never really been in like serious. I've never really had girlfriends. I've never been in a relationship like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know what it's like truly.
Right.
But for me, because I guess probably because I've never been in a relationship, I feel bad for both of them. And like, when you have a married couple, if this their first time, like if they're listening to this, do they not feel bad about what's happening between the two of them, or like you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
or
but the thing is, may not even be aware of it. They may not be
I'm
aware
saying
they're
like,
different.
No, I'm saying like if you are giving a talk to married couples that are struggling, do they feel bad about it, or are they angry? Like, you know what I mean?
More often than not, angry.
The women go.
Why do they not?
The
feel
women
bad
pick
about
it up.
The women go.
Yeah, the women
And
pick
the
it up,
men are going,
and the
"Shut
guys, yeah,
up."
the guys are sitting there going, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. We gave this, and I had to give this whole course in an hour and a half at one of our couple meeting things. And the next week, at least half the couples didn't come back because the guys were absolutely. We had a guy up and walking around the back of the room, just pacing back and forth, growling. I mean, it was ugly.
Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Isolation. This is just one of the directions you can go. The next one is uneasy peace. 80 to 90% of all marriages that stay together go into this. Okay? And this is mine. These are my words, okay? This isn't John Paul II saying this. I'm just coming up with a way to try to explain it. So what is this? Uneasy peace, the woman generally stays for security. The guy stays because it's better than nothing. They both may be getting older. They didn't think they're going to get married anyway. It's better than living a life alone. Okay? She still has her ideal of a husband. She still has hope this relationship can be fixed. It's dim, maybe far in the back, but it's there. These are mostly the people that come to these couple things, that are coming trying to get help. They're going to psychologists, they're going to places. But the man tends to be distant and cold. He tends to be unsupportive of children, especially another child. Children add uncertainty. You have this, again, it's not like isolation. They're there, they're going around, they're doing stuff, but they're just going through the motions. The most common name for a marriage like this is called boring. It's boring. It's boring. I'm married, but it's boring.
This is when a guy goes to the bar and says, my wife doesn't understand me.
Yeah.
I'm not in love anymore.
I'm not in love anymore. Yeah. Where is the fire gone? You know, it used to be great, but now it's not, you know. So many. Why? Okay. This actually is where TOB can actually help them a lot. It really can.
Do you think this is where a lot of divorce comes in?
Divorce will often, not really, yeah. Divorce happens when, well, like the lady here, she's bored, so she starts drinking. You know, he's on the internet, he might go over to porn. The further you get apart, then you start completely getting apart. And to where you're not even, I mean, it's just, it isn't abusive. You learn to stop fighting, okay? You know where the landmines are, so you don't hit them anymore. But you're still not, you're really not loving one another. Yes?
So like, I can't comprehend why someone, or why a couple would want to stay in this, like, specific spot in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So why?
Let's say you've been married
like,
20 years.
Why are they content? Why do they
Okay,
stay
let's say they've been
content?
married 20 years. What are they going to do? If they divorce, what are they going to do?
Well, it would be worse if they divorce, I guess, but
That's
why
the
don't
option.
they want, but things could be better.
Yeah, why they didn't one thing is a lot of times what happens, and this is not just here, but it's in life in general. They bury themselves in distractions. Okay? Movies, videos, stories, shopping. They just do something else that they like to do, but not with the other person. I'm sorry, you had something? Work. Workaholics. You get involved in work, you never come home. When you do come home, it's like late at night, she's already in bed. Sleeping in separate beds in the same house, very common attribute. But these can be fixed because they're not at each other's throats. Okay? But that's where almost, I would say 90% of the marriages that don't break up in the first couple years end up here. They're married, they're getting along. Sometimes they have good days, sometimes they have bad, but it's better than nothing.
And then you get into, you've tried, okay? Here I am, I've said, okay, this is my fault, I'm gonna change things, and I start being nice to him. And he goes,
And I don't respond.
she's trying to manipulate me.
Yeah.
She must want new carpet.
They don't know the joke.
He does. Okay, so the man sees it as manipulation. Well, if I am nice to him for 3 months and I get no response, well, that didn't work. Maybe it wasn't my fault.
At least I tried.
And then he says, oh, this has gone on for 3 months. Maybe this is real. So he responds after she gives up. So she says, oh, yeah, what do you want? I know what you want. You want that new boat. Sorry, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth like that, and they never quite manage to be nice to each other at the same time.
Now,
We know a couple
Go ahead.
that's been married as long as we have, which will be this 39 years, and the graces of matrimony are genuine because they are still trying.
For most of our marriage, we're just thinking the only thing we can say about their marriage is they're not making two other people miserable, because they're after each other all the time. But they do work on it. And I guarantee you, if they end up with a good marriage, that is God's grace over the top. The next one is one I hate to go to, but it's abuse. Abuse is now endemic. It's awful. The abuse can be of a woman, of a man, of a child, or any combination. And yes, husbands are abused. The abuse can be physical, which is what we know the most, mental, which is very hard without psychological, psychiatric type work to even see it, and emotional. There's a lot of ways. Generally, if the woman is abusing the man, she does it through emotional, because women are masters of emotion and men are not. The big thing to say here is that if you have an abusive relationship, it is in a death spiral. You must separate. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You cannot stay in the relationship, and it must have professional help, because it is going down the tubes really fast. And whatever it is that's causing it isn't going to go away as long as they're still together. It's got to be found out. It's got to be stopped. Now, it's not so much you have to divorce. The church doesn't really believe in divorce. I would think in most cases of abuse, though, the church could look at it and it was never a valid marriage to start with, because the husband really never intended to commit, if it's physical abuse especially. But don't try to fix it, even just as a girlfriend or whatever. If the abuse is going on, it has got to have people that can respond to it and can intervene. It takes professional intervention. And it may take incarceration.
The church does not say you have to stay with an abusive spouse.
No.
Some people say, well, I'm Catholic, I can't leave.
Because the church doesn't allow divorce. Yeah.
Well,
You have to leave. You have to leave. Now, we've had this in our own family.
You have become a mere occasion of sin for your abuser. Because
Just by being
you
there.
can't get away, you can't stop it. And so if you can't stop it, he obviously or she obviously won't.
But abuse spirals. And I'm sorry, but the worst thing is abuse of children. And what we've seen just here locally with people that do foster care, it'll rip your heart out. It'll rip your heart out. A little boy was, how was he, six months old, something like that. He wouldn't cry. He'd go, because every time he cried, he got beat. He had healed bones.
Well, he came to the foster parents with a broken leg, but with the x-rays they did, he'd also had a broken arm that was not healed correctly.
Yeah, it had healed.
It had healed.
So it had been a while. This was a 6-month-old baby.
6-month-old baby.
Couldn't even crawl. I mean, and then they sent him back. After they had him for a while, they sent the kid back to the parents. It was just like,
And then the ones who give him meth to make him go to sleep.
Yeah. There is just, the child abuse is over the top. Why this is we're going to get to it at the end of this. So now you have the other one, which is the woman is frustrated, she's tired, she's tried, she's given up, and she abandons the ideal. I don't want a husband, I don't want a man, I don't need a man. Okay? But that need is so great that the woman will fill the need herself. If nobody will fill it for her, she will fill it for herself, because it's that powerful. So she'll do what she would expect the man to do for her. Now these may be sexist or whatever, but that's just something I came up with. Okay? But if it needs to get done and he won't do it, then I'll do it. How does the guy feel about that? They're still in a relationship. How does the guy feel about her doing this? Again, without grace.
I win.
He likes it because he didn't have to do it.
Great. I mean, that's what I don't have to work. What's better than not having to work, you know? It actually fills right in with his selfishness. And eventually it gets to the point to where she stops seeking any male companionship whatsoever. You get these sisterhoods, you know, it's just all about us. And you guys have seen this, I'm sure. So, in the end, neither the man nor the woman are happy with the relationship. Okay, so what's going on here? What's driving this? What's causing this mess? And incidentally, I did this mainly for couples, but this isn't just couples. This would be co-workers. This could be everything, family members. This actually impacts everything in life. The TOB is not a Catholic sex manual, okay? It's about love and interpersonal relationships in every level. This one is just focused around how men and women interact or don't interact or fight or act or whatever you want to call it together. So at the start of this, at the temptation, I read a quote from the Book of Wisdom. Anybody remember what it was? Something about the devil? And I told you, think about this because we're going to come back to it later. And I apologize, I don't have the slide here. I'm supposed to, but it ain't there. And
Can you read it?
well, I got to see if I can find it first. Okay, so I'm going to read the quote I'm talking about is through the devil's envy, death entered the world. But I'm going to back up and read wisdom because I don't like taking things out of context. So I'm going to put it back into context because I think it's fascinating how it ties into Christ and the crucifixion. Now, the Book of Wisdom, Book of Solomon, Wisdom of Solomon is written somewhere, from what I understand, the 5th to 6th century BC, during the Babylonian captivity. 500 to 600 years before Christ. Now listen to this. Let us lie in wait for the righteous man, because he is inconvenient to us and opposes our actions. He reproaches us for sins against the law. He accuses us of sins against our training. He professes to have knowledge of God and calls himself a child of the Lord. He became to us a reproof of our thoughts. The very sight of him is a burden to us, because his manner of life is unlike that of others, and his ways are strange. We are considered by him as something base. He avoids our ways as unclean. He calls the last end of the righteous happy. He boasts that God is his Father. Let us see if his words are true. Let us test what will happen at the end of his life. For if the righteous man is God's son, he will help him. He will deliver him from the hand of his adversaries. Let us test him with insult and torture, that we may find out how gentle he is and make a trial of his forbearance. Let us condemn him to a shameful death, for according to what he says, he will be protected. Can you not hear that at the crucifixion? I mean, they almost say that word for word. Thus they reasoned, but they were led astray, for their wickedness blinded them. They did not know the secret purposes of God, nor hope for the wages of holiness, nor discern the prize for blameless souls. For God created man for incorruption, and made him in the image of his own eternity. But through the devil's envy, death entered the world. So again, what is he envious of? What can we do that he cannot do? And remember how I said back in the garden that if you took the serpent if you took the red dragon from Revelation and back translated it from Greek to Hebrew, you would have to use the same word that's used for the word serpent in Genesis. So listen to this. You guys know this one. I don't know if you've heard it in the full order, but this is Revelation 12. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child, and she cried out in her pangs of birth, in anguish for delivery. Then another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a giant red dragon, with 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 diadems upon his heads. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear a child, that he might devour her child when she brought it forth. She brought forth a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared for God, in which to be nourished for 1,260 days. Now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought. They were defeated, and there was no longer a place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan. Wait a minute. She's about to give birth. He's going to devour her child, but they're in heaven. He hasn't been thrown down yet. Michael throws him down here. Doesn't that sound a little odd? Remember how I was saying they somehow saw a sign of what God planned? And he came down and attacked Eve, attacked the woman. And God told him, you got the wrong woman. This is the indication they're using, that he knew that there was going to be a woman, and that woman was going to bear a son, and that son was going to defeat him. So he wanted to make it not work in heaven and was thwarted, so he came to earth. And then when he does come down to earth, when the dragon saw that he'd been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had borne the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness. And then it goes on down through that he spewed water out of her mouth to try to flood her, and the earth swallowed it up. And then you have this line. Then the dragon was angry with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and bear testimony to Jesus. Okay, so if he's attacking us, how is he going to attack us? And then what do we have that he would be envious of? Anybody have any idea? Can angels create?
No.
No, they cannot. Can we create?
Yes.
Yes. It's called
Procreation.
procreation. When we have a child, or when we conceive a child, we add to eternity. Because that child, whether it's born or not, is forever. What the Satan can't stand is that we can add to creation, and he cannot. And the book of Revelation tells you how he's going to attack us. What does he try to do to the woman? He tries to kill her child at birth. What do you suppose he's doing with us? To keep us from having children. Don't conceive them, first of all. If they're conceived, lose them. Yeah, lose them. If they are born, don't let them live. If they do live, don't let them thrive. If they do thrive, don't let them reproduce. His whole purpose, his whole point, his whole reason is to annihilate mankind. And the best way to do it is make sure there's no more of them. And God is at cross purposes with that at all times. So if he can get it to where nobody has kids, and you do it for one generation, what happens? You die off. Everybody dies. You have a limited amount of time where a woman is fertile. Break the marriages. Break bonds between the people. Break bonds between the parents and their children. Between the children and other children. Okay? So I got one question to ask. How's he doing?
Doing a pretty good job.
It's sad how bad it is. Now, that is the bad news. Okay? That is the bad news. You understand why I told you all this is going to be a rough one? This is a nasty course. I hate giving it. Y'all are young enough and you're Catholic. And, you know, so I figured it's probably a little safer. You give this to adults. And I mean, I've seen guys have got nothing left. Yes.
I'm still having a hard time understanding. I mean, I can see
Why
how
would people
guys
stay in a
can be bad,
relationship?
But it's like maybe because I haven't been in a relationship. But
Yeah, I'm almost guaranteed. I mean, that's part of it. But the other thing is that they got in a relationship, they probably were in love at some time. It may have been not a very deep one, but they were in love. And then when it falls apart, they still hope for that to come back. That's why they go to counselors. That's why they get married in the first place. I mean, if you're not in love with somebody and you marry him, nuts. You're just nuts. Yes.
Another thing is, like, if you've already spent so much time with someone, you don't want to start back to square one
Yeah.
with someone else.
And can you even find someone else? How hard was it to find that person in the first place?
And people stay in love with the idea of who that person was or who that person can become.
Or their fantasy of them.
Yeah, and that's very big danger. But the thing is, there's situations, I've seen so much. When I was in the Navy, the divorce rate was around 90%. I mean, sailors and divorce, like every time he went to sea, and when you went on a cruise overseas, you were gone 6 to 9 months. And you come back and it's a wreck. You know, the wife has been having, affairs, the guy's not faithful when he's overseas, the whole 9 yards, yada, yada, yada.
Well, even
And they get-
if it's not that,
Yeah.
they've learned to live without each other.
And when he comes back, he's a totally different person.
And
Now, when I was in the engine rooms, and we had a chief come down to the engine rooms, maybe a year before I got out, who was Catholic, and had 5 kids. One of the first things he asked me why I didn't go to church. I well, don't talk to me. But really nice guy, and he had 5 kids. But the most amazing thing was he had a 17-year-old son by his wife. I never saw that in the Navy, even among the officers. When they had kids that were 16 and 17 years old, he's not married to his mother. It's somebody else's kid, or you know what? It was the darndest thing. And he was a very devout Catholic. And they did not use the birth control pill. Which I was going, how can you not use the birth control pill? He says, well, the Pope said no.
Did they use natural family planning?
That didn't really exist then. I mean, didn't really exist. I mean, they had, you basically, if you didn't want to have a kid, you just controlled yourself. But there was a thing called the rhythm method, which people used to always, joke at me, is going, oh, yeah, you're Catholic, So there was 15 in my family. Okay, so everybody, oh, you must be Catholic. Instantly. Even now when I say I got 7 kids, they go, oh, you must be Catholic. And I got a good reply for that one. I go, why didn't you ask if I was Mormon? They go, oh, I'm sorry, are you Mormon? No, I'm Catholic. Why? Good retort. Wow. I love, over these years I've gotten it, so like you don't have a TV, you saying TV's better, huh? So, man cannot live without love. He remains a being that is incomprehensible to himself. His life is senseless if love is not revealed to him, if he does not encounter love, if he does not experience it and make it his own, and if he does not participate intimately in it. That is why Christ the Redeemer, love itself, fully reveals man to himself. Okay, that's the launch into 2 weeks.
Yes.
Is the materials in?
Yes.
November
Okay,
3rd.
materials are in. Okay, good. So what is that? November something or other?
3rd, honey. I
Huh?
just said, are you deaf in the tone range of my voice?
Not as bad as you are, but go ahead. You hear her say, huh? Ooh, bad one. Okay,
I
go.
did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah,
Know
yeah,
that.
sure.
November 3rd, yes.
Okay. I promise you, Christopher West is amazing. The way he unpacks theology of the body is a lot of fun too. But the reason I did this is he's going to make oblique references to it while he's running through stuff. And if you don't know what he's talking about, it'll just go, you completely miss the point. And I'm sorry, this is hard. This is ugly. But you know what? Sin is ugly. It's real ugly.
How many people do you know say I'm never gonna have kids?
A lot of people say that.
There's a whole subreddit online dedicated to not having kids.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like the big thing.
And there's probably millions of people in it.
How many people can't even decide what their sex is, what their gender is?
Oh, God.
I mean, this is a sign of brokenness. You carry these things. When you have these damaged relationships, and we call it baggage. It's just baggage you carry into the next one. And when that one fails, you take that and you add more baggage, yes.
One of the things you talked about was a woman will become her ideal husband in a way.
She'll do it herself.
Do you think that's anything to do with like the transgender issue?
I don't know. I haven't really thought. There's so many things in there. And I'm willing to bet if you look deep enough, you'll find different types of not necessarily physical abuse, but psychological and emotional abuse in the past somewhere, or the parents. That's what I'm saying. When you get something, you pass it down to your kids. Sons of alcoholics tend to be alcoholics because that's normal. I work with a, and I don't know, this isn't racist. I worked with a black guy at work at Quality Mechanical for several years, and he grew up in a basically a drug house right off 3rd Street off downtown. And every day they called it the Flats. And he said it would once, twice, 3 times a month they're having to roll out of bed and lay on the ground because of bullets flying through the house. He said that was just normal. We laughed. We just thought it was funny. If that was normal to him because that's all he knew. And it wasn't until he got out of that and got into a different area and became Christian and married his wife that he says, you know what? I was a wreck. I mean, he went to Caprock and he was kicked out of school 3 times a month, because he was fighting. Yes.
Maybe I don't think this is all that bad because I'm a political science major and I see how screwed up the world is. But I can't. It's so hard for me to understand how like I can see how the guy would get mad at his wife or whatever. But I don't know, maybe it's part of who I am, I don't know, but for me, I feel like, maybe I should do better, you know, like why, like, instead of getting mad.
grace in you, Timothy.
I was gonna say, count your blessings.
Yeah.
Count your
Be
blessings.
thankful you have good parents.
Yeah. The fact that you haven't seen that, you've seen it around you, but if maybe you just don't see it, don't notice it. You know, like I said, because I cannot imagine anybody just not seeing this everywhere. It's just.
Okay, if it makes you feel any better, I lived 4 years on my own. I left home at 18. I was not kicked out. I was going to an airline job. But I moved halfway across the country, totally away from my support network. I was wearing, like a little crown of daisies. I was just that innocent. And when that man grabbed my butt with his wife standing right there. That was the most shocking thing I had ever heard of. That he would do such a thing. Well, it didn't even occur to me that he wanted to take it further. And I was so sophisticated by the time I moved to Amarillo 2 years later.
No, she wasn't. You guys would tell an off-color joke at work, and she just look at him. She goes, "Go ask Tim." They didn't want to explain it to her. She had to come. Well, what's he talking about? Oh boy. Okay. This is after we're married.
and he would blush to tell me.
But it's just, God bless her. I mean, she had a wonderful life. Yes.
Okay, so I haven't been married before, so this is why I'm asking this question.
Okay.
Say you have a good, healthy relationship. Would y'all say that there's a good chance that can still transfer onto the marriage? That will remain what it was?
The previous relationship? Or?
No, in a relationship. Like, say
Now.
you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
but say you get married. Are there high possibilities for that to still continue in the marriage, or can anything happen to still?
That's too
really
broad. The problem is first of all, I don't know why the first marriage broke up.
No, she's saying it's a good relationship and then they get married.
So you're dating.
Oh, you're dating and get married? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The thing, does anybody understand that how you get married? Does the church marry anybody? No. Who marries you?
Each other.
You marry to each other.
You marry each other with your vows.
The church stands witness.
The church witnesses it and blesses it.
Where does God work into that?
God blesses it, and you are the marriage. Okay, we're not doing marriage prep, but here we go. Okay, God's love is free, total, faithful, and fruitful. A marriage is meant to reflect God's love. So a marriage has to be free. You can't be married already. You can't have encumbrance. You can't have a prenuptial agreement. That makes the marriage invalid. Okay? It's got to be free. You can't have some guy with a gun at your back saying you marry her or blow your brains out. Okay? It's not free. Same thing with her. She can't be coming in because she owes you a bunch of money and says, will you marry me? No, it's not free. Free means you can break it off right now.
And I want y'all to know, as I'm standing in my wedding dress, the back of the church, I put my hand in my dad's arm, and he looks at me and he says, are you sure you want to do this, baby? Even at that point, and I'm his 6th kid, okay? So even at that point, he was ready he paid for the dress, he paid for the church, they paid for the reception, the whole bit. And we were not rich people. And he was still ready to say, if you don't want to do this, I'll walk you right out the door and go home. We both had the full support of our families for our marriage. Now, having said that, there are 4 stages every relationship goes through. infatuation, the marriage, disappointment,
Disillusionment, yeah.
and then acceptance. Acceptance is when the rubber hits the road. He snores, he farts, and you love him anyway.
He won't put the toilet paper on the roll.
He won't put the toilet seat down.
Yeah.
Okay, that never bothered me. I was much more concerned with him putting the toilet seat up. I didn't like to sit in sprinkles. But, but I had brothers. But it's when you get to acceptance, that's when your love really starts growing. And okay, so I had a hormonal roller coaster.
Oh boy. Oh boy. And denied her hormonal roller coaster.
No, I just denied
Yeah, no,
everything that I was wrong with him. It wasn't just because of my hormones. But, I mean, it was like this. And it was horrible. The best 10 years of our marriage were the 10 years that I was either pregnant or nursing. Because we just didn't have to write it. But his ability to accept that he had no idea what woman he was coming home to.
It was hard. I mean, when we first started out, I mean, I came home expecting one thing, and I walk in the door and say, "Hi, honey," and she rips my face off. And I go, What? She goes, "You don't know what you did?" I walked in the door and said, "Hi, honey." I mean, I've never done that before. I'm sorry. It's like, and then I get mad and we have a fight, and I'm going, what just happened? So anyway, this is we get off the thing here. We're getting off the rails.
So, but this is the disappointment.
Okay.
This is the disillusionment that you go through. It wasn't any easier for him than it was for me. Because number one, I was no longer his number one focus. Once we got married, he went to work every 5 days a week.
Sometimes had to work
He
overtime.
thought about it when he got home. I wasn't his focus anymore. How could this? You philanderer, you.
What were those 4 steps? Infatuation, then what was the second one?
Marriage,
Okay, and then
Disillusionment, and then acceptance. And again, God's love is free, total, faithful, and fruitful. And in our culture, the fruitful and the faithful, well, actually, pretty much all of them are missing, but the fruitful is blocked all the time.
and to the point that it's like socially responsible to block it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, we've had to sign statements when she had babies to not tie her tubes. The tying the tubes was automatic. Once she has the baby, they tie the tubes. Unless you say, don't do it.
Is it still like that?
I'm dead serious.
It's even worse now.
I'm dead serious. They would tie her tubes, they would tie a woman's tube as soon as she had the baby,
How many?
unless she said he didn't.
Wait,
That's
Even with the single birth, they can tie the tubes.
Do you have to say something?
You have to say no. You don't have to give approval to it. You have to say no.
Find a midwife.
How is this not common knowledge? Because I didn't know about that.
Have a baby. Have a baby, and when they're bringing those 897 forms in for her to sign
Wait, will
before they
they-
have the baby, one of them is
so
going to be.
will they say we're going to do this, or do you just have to know?
Yeah, do you have to just read the fine print?
Yes.
Yes.
Anymore? Yes. Anymore. See,
Well, actually, it's okay.
I
You
had a
gotta understand,
great
we're
book.
militant. Okay, we are militant. So we go in there and she says, "Don't talk to me about birth control. Don't tie my tubes. Don't do anything about sterilization. Don't even talk to me." And the doctor
do
writes it.
not talk to me about aborting.
Yeah, and the doctor actually writes it on her
I
records.
had it.
Do not ask. I've read it. I picked a little thing up and go, "Oh, Dr. Gazzola's been here."
But yeah, I
It's
had
very
a
close to
friend who
automatic.
had 3 children, and they tied her tubes, and she knew nothing about it.
what the?
Are you able to do anything after that? Like,
Well,
can you?
it was a.
I don't know.
Like
Tubal reversals are very seldom, successful. You can reverse a vasectomy, but tying the tubes doesn't work very, they can't be untied.
Yeah, it's that, we're just there. And the thing is, you probably signed one of the papers, cause you signed 150 little forms, and they're like rattling stuff on it, and they're like 3 pages ahead of you while you're still signing down here, and it just becomes autopilot.
Yep.
And you're just signing everything. I mean, I went in the Navy doing that, okay? I mean, I signed a form I thought was gonna be taking a test, and I ended up signing a enlistment, you know, I joined the Navy. And I took it home, showed it to my dad, and he goes, you know you're in the Navy? Going, no, I'm not, I'm going back to take a test. No, this, you signed your enlistment form. You can wait 90 days before you go in, but you enlisted. So, I went in the Navy for 6 years. Yeah. Oh boy. Read the fine print.
Consequences, children, read the fine
Read
print.
the fine print. So, here we are. Boy, we run down a rabbit hole or what? But when you're getting into this in the relationship, there is like a billion different ways every day can go. It is so complex, so complicated. In fact, it's somebody said to me, I think it was an old man on his 50th anniversary. They were saying, well, you know, what's the secret to staying married? And he goes, I don't have a clue. You know, I have no idea. It's just, we just did. You know, there's no secret. But the love, if you have love and you're willing to work through things. Okay, a good analogy from another couple that also teaches marriage counseling. Most marriage are like 2 horses pulling against each other. You know, the man's going this way, the woman's going that way, and every day is this tug of war of who's going to win.
Have you ever seen a horse pull, a draft horse pull, when they're both hitched to the same cement block, and one team is pulling this way and one team is pulling this way? That's what a graceless marriage is.
Yeah. But they were saying that when you stop fighting against each other and then start working the same way, you make tremendous progress. And that's really, I mean, we had rough spots. And somewhere along the line, we finally said, you know what, let's just get on the same track and see if we can work this thing out. And it was also when we had the 3rd child. Because, and then one of my aunts told me this one. We had 2 kids, you know, we're doing okay. And she goes, oh, wait till you have the 3rd one. And I go, why? What's so special about the 3rd one? She goes, the 3rd one, you got dad tackling one and mom tackling the other, and you got an odd man out. Out rebel rousing, and you get 2 will turn against 1, and he says it just adds such a dynamic to it. He says you have to go.
That's when you become a parent.
You go from control to discipline. It's a whole different thing. You can control them because you're bigger, but you discipline them so they develop their own self-control. And then once you have 3, you can't tell if you have more. You honestly can't help, because by that time the youngest one's getting big enough to help. They're pitching in with the chores and all that, and then everybody else sees, you know, older sister or brother doing stuff, and they want to do it too. So, you know, you got little 3-year-olds up there on a little stand washing dishes with you.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it just does.
Okay.
Timothy's having a mental breakdown.
My body's going under all the time. So you said something about how Satan is trying to like destroy us and everything, and now we said we're doing a good job. Well, when you said that after you have the first baby, they'll tie your tubes, like that it takes a lot to surprise me these days, because
I know.
I found that really surprising. Like things like abortion and contraception and all that. Like those are characteristics of a dying society, and you have like China, which can't even sustain itself anymore. Like after so
no,
long.
it's not just China. Our birth rate.
No, I know that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but I'm getting there. But like China is like they can't, like they're losing people, like they're like gonna be no more. And then like we're like, why? Like,
Well, the question is once you start that, how do you reverse it? Once you get that mentality built into a culture,
exactly.
how do you
but-
reverse it? I don't know. I don't have any answers on where we're going from here. I'm not a prophet.
So do you,
Okay,
do you
I'm
know
just teaching
about
stuff.
Italy? Italy doesn't have the same policy that China has. But the words aunt and uncle are gone.
Brother
Really?
and sister.
Brother and sister are rare.
They don't even
They
know what
have
they mean.
entire villages that are empty. In fact, when the big thing was going on in Syria with the Christians being killed and everything, Glenn Beck bought an entire village in Italy and moved a 747 of people into it from Syria. Okay,
It's
because
serious.
they
I
were
didn't know that.
sitting there doing nothing with these buildings. It
I
was
didn't even know that
empty.
about Italy.
Oh, Italy's population rate 20 years ago was 0.7. Their population rate was 0.7.
That's crazy.
The 0.7 is way below replacement. Replacement's like, they say, I don't know, they say different things.
It's 2.1.
Yeah, they say it's like 2.12 or 2 point something or other, whatever. I think it's because of other things. I think it's actually lower than that, or higher. It needs to be higher than that to be sustainable. But at any rate, it's in the entire first world, it's chronic. It is chronic. I mean, the populations are getting ready to collapse. So that's why we're focusing so much on technology and robots. Japan has to have robots for just about everything because there's no new people to do their stuff. That's why they're so focused on it. And they're gonna have to have robots taking care of the old people because there's getting to be so many old people. And you have John Paul II called it a culture of death.
Yeah.
We have it. I mean, we're getting
There are
there.
more geriatric doctors in Japan than there are pediatricians. They've closed all their amusement parks because there aren't enough kids to come to them. I mean, it's, and the shift in the family, you know, Japan's not exactly a Christian country, but they made men, they had the women focusing on cleanliness so much, and men were dirty. They're large, they sweat. They used to have little, the little covers on the computer, and every time a man would walk through, the women would spray their computer things down and wipe them with sanitizer because the men had contaminated their office. Okay, so you're told this 20 hours of every day, and then you're supposed to go, hey big boy, let's have a baby. It ain't gonna happen. If you want a baby, you go to the IVF clinic.
It's just ugly. Now again, where we're gonna go from here, I don't know.
And you abort the boy because you don't want a dirty boy in your house.
So the global elite push this type of stuff. Bill Gates, people like him,
Mhm.
they push all this stuff. Why do you think they're doing that?
Okay, I'm telling you exactly why. Because it
Not
impinged on me. It is one of the things that, okay, oh man, this is gonna personal testimony, I don't wanna go there, but I was one of 15, okay? I was in a small town, mostly Protestant. We lived on the wrong side of town. Okay, we went to the wrong church, which was a Catholic church. They were all these big Protestant churches. And we had way too many kids. And this was the 60s, and we're poor. Everybody else has everything, and the only thing that was important was having everything, and we had nothing. And we're wearing clothes. It's a very small town, so I'm wearing clothes that other guys I'm going to school with discarded 2 years earlier, or a year earlier, or whatever.
And they recognize the
Oh,
shirt.
they recognize the shirts. Hey, I like that shirt. I liked it too. you know, in front of a whole bunch of girls, so they'd laugh at you. So I hated it. I hated growing up. I hated school. I was mad at my family. I was mad at everybody. Okay, my mother died in 1958 when I was 5. Okay, then my dad remarried, and my stepmother died in 1968. In 1968, a book came out called The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich. It was an absolute smashing bestseller. It was on the news, it was on special programs, it was in newspapers, magazines, everywhere. Population bomb, population explosion. We're going to eat ourselves out of existence. We're going to breed ourselves out of existence. You know, we can only have 2 children, no more, because you're going to use up all the planet's resources and we'll all be dead by the year 2000. That's what he said. And here I am, the poster child for, you know, for all the bad that's going on. And the biggest one, they said, is that a woman having too many kids kills her. My mother had 7 and died. My stepmother had 8 and died. And the year Population Bomb came out, my stepmother died about 2 months later. I may need you to come closer over here, okay? Because I'm starting to lose it. So I had this wound, if you will. And in June of 1968, Paul VI came out with Humanae Vitae, which everybody basically said condemned the birth control pill. Okay? And I mean, I became ground zero for all the hate you can imagine when I went to school. And all over town. I mean, it was just so much. You're one of the Omises, aren't you? It was just palpable. And I was so hateful, so resentful of that. I mean, I was mad at my dad for having so many kids. I was mad at my church. I was mad at the town. I was mad at the school. So as soon as I turned 18, well, wasn't totally because I turned 18. There's a thing called a draft. I was going to sit out for a year and earn enough money and go to college because we couldn't pay sending me to college. And my draft number was like 32. And if your number was less than 100, you're guaranteed to be called up to the draft. And if it's 150, you got about an 80% chance. And Vietnam was in full swing. In 1970, it was in full swing. So I went down to look into the Navy and ended up enlisting kind of unintentionally. So anyway, that was one of those things. And all the time, every time I was in the Navy, people would say, you know, they'd ask you about your family and all this stuff. And I'd say I'm from 15 kids. And I swear, every time, said, you know, how many kids in your family? I said, well, I'm from a family of 15. They go, oh my God, your poor mother. He says, well, actually, my mother died. I says, well, hell, no reason, no wonder. How many kids have killed anybody? I can't tell you how that hurt.
So now tell them about the night you met me.
So I get out of the Navy after 6 years. I go to college here to WT, study music for about a year, and then I decided I don't want to be a musician. I don't want to practice. I just hate to practice. So I decided, okay, music's not for me. I was already a mechanic, so I started my own business, fixing things. Lonely, you know, once you I was 25 years old when I was a freshman. So I didn't really fit in. It's just really great. You know, I kind of hung around the graduate students and the seniors a whole lot more than I did my own classmates. But at any rate, started doing music in Amarillo, had my own business, and it was, you know, playing the party scene and all that. And I don't know, I was still empty. I was still lonely. There was just something missing. And I'd go through one relationship after another, and it would like get up for a little while, and then we'd have a breakup. Sometimes with fights, sometimes not fights, sometimes it's, you know what, this is going nowhere. I mean, we're just not compatible, you know. And I was the president of two singles groups, and both singles groups were party groups, and they all ended up having the same problem. But you get this little core group of people, and then nobody new can come in because they won't talk to them, they won't welcome them, they won't say anything to them. So my last time I was in it, I did this for about 2 years. I was the president. And I kept telling the people, this is a ministry. We are ministering to Catholic singles, okay? This is not about the softball team, which is what most of them were. And I said, when people come in, you go and talk to them and bring them into the group, because they're coming here because they want to meet people. That's your job. And every time we'd have a meeting, somebody else come in, they'd meet them, they'd say hi, you look over there 15 minutes later, and there's, you know, the new people are standing out on the edge. And I go over and talk to them, but it's like, only one guy talks to you, you're gonna come back? Oh, yeah, don't be stupid. So anyway, I was getting burned out, and I told our pastor, or not a pastor, but he was a spiritual director, that I was gonna quit. I didn't want to be president anymore, and I was just gonna get out of the whole thing. And he says, well, okay, but wait until we elect new officers. We're gonna have a wine and cheese party to try to attract new people. You know, throw it open to all the parishes in Amarillo. And, you know, wait till we have officers, and then, you know, God bless you, I understand. So we elect officers before the party starts, and you know, people come in and they start all kinds of new people. Most of them I knew. In fact, almost all of them I knew, except for this one young lady that was like new in town. And you know, I mean, I go up and I talk to her a little bit, but I mean, she looks like she's 14, 15 or so. I'm 30, okay? I mean,
she's 21.
Yeah, but she didn't look 21. She looked like she's right out of high school.
And I'm sitting there going,
I said, I can go up and talk to her, but I am going to scare her out of here. So I'm just, hi, how are you? Fine, I'm Tim, goodbye. And then I just kind of sat off in the corner watching, you know, everybody do the mingling and pouting and doing my usual stuff. And, you know, after about 30 minutes, the pastor comes over, not the pastor again, the spiritual director comes over and says, well, what do you think? I think it's a pretty good thing. It goes, it is, yeah. Look around. And they look around, and here's this little circle, and all the new people are lining the walls. Nobody was being talked to. And he looked over at me, and we'd worked on this for months. And he looked over at me and goes, they did it again. I go, they do it every stinking time. That's why I'm tired of it. And he says, well, I'm fixing this now. So he like claps his hands, he said, everybody shut up, and said, okay, everybody in this room for the rest of this evening has to speak to someone they do not know. There was one person in that room I did not know. So I go over to her and I said, hi, you know, I'm Tim. She goes, yeah, I remember that. She goes, so tell me a little bit about, you know, yourself. She goes, well, see, I'm from Washington State. And I go, oh, well, that's interesting, because you know, I was in Bremerton, Washington when my ship was in dry dock. She says, oh, you were in the Navy? My brother's in the Navy. I go, oh, really? What is he? He works with boilers. I go, he's a boilerman. I was a machinist mate. He makes the steam, I use the steam. You know, so it's like this commonality type thing. And we're just going back and forth. And she says, and I said, well, how big's your family? She goes, well, I'm from a family of 9. And she's waiting for me to react.
I'm waiting for his reaction.
And I'm sitting there going like, I got you so good. I mean, I got you, because she's like, ready, I'm from 9. Really? I'm from a family of 15. And she goes, 15? Really? And I'm just going, whoa, that has never happened in my entire life. And I just got going, wow. And I was completely blown off by that, you know. And she's going, that must be wonderful. I'm going, let's change the subject. So we start dating, and okay, I gotta go with this. I gotta tell the story. So we're sitting there talking, and it's like we've known each other. We're going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And people come over and go, how long you known her, Tim? I go, we go way back, maybe 30 minutes ago. I mean, we've been around a long time. And you know, and then some other people come in, and we're just having a little chat group and all that. And she does this. Can I ask you a favor? I started going, I'm gonna get to take her home. Oh, this is great. You know, I just thought, wow, man, this is so fantastic. And she goes, I need a note to take back to my boss at work that I came here tonight. what? I need a note signed by the president or an officer of the group that said I was here tonight so I could take it back to my boss. Okay, this is not computing. I mean, you want to tell them why?
No.
Yes, we do.
This was in September, and I had been in Amarillo since May, and I had met no one. I knew 3 people from the airport, and I only wanted to know one. So I was extremely lonely. And she told me if I did not quit moping around and did not take this opportunity to go to the church and meet these people, she was gonna fire me. And she says, and I want something signed by the president that you were there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, this was like so weird. Holy Spirit moments.
Wow.
Okay, so, you know, and I was like going, well, okay, so we get like a napkin or something and write, and then the girl who was the secretary goes, oh no, this needs a document. So she goes back to the office and she finds some calligraphy pens, those ones that do the really nice, and she could do calligraphy. So she gets this, it wasn't really a piece of parchment.
Stationary.
Yeah, stationary, to whom it may concern on this day, they did say some Rozanne LSV did come in presence of our, this a little official thing, and then we had little lines where we signed it and all, and we're just yucking it up. I mean, we're having a good time. And we give it to her, and she's like, laughing, smiling. She walks out, she gets in her car, and she drives away, and I go, she is never coming back. I just knew she's never going to come back because I was the only one to talk to her. So then I got thinking about that a lot more. I go, I'd kind of like to talk to her a little more. I'd like to go meet her and do some more. So I call up the secretary, and you guys are going to love this one. So I call the secretary up, whose name was Gayla, and I said, Gayla, yeah, you remember that girl at the party Sunday? Yeah. She goes, yeah. Well, which one? I said, well, the one we had to make the little note for to take her, for her note to get back in school. She goes, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, do you have her phone number? Why do you want her phone number? I just want her phone number, okay? Tim, why do you want her phone number? You know why I want her phone number. I think you're awful old for just give me her phone number. So she gives me the phone number, and I go, okay, I got one other favor. It goes, what? What's her name? I couldn't remember her name. So anyway, and then I called her up, and we managed to go out on a date, and things just kind of went from there. I don't want to do the whole stupid story, it'll take too long. But anyway, that's...
Father Pat Carruthers was the spiritual director, and he did he was the one who fostered our meeting, and then he did our premarital counseling, and I highly recommend Engaged Encounter.
That's not it. I already checked it.
Oh,
It's okay.
I took it out. Is
Oh.
I'm sorry. It smelled like it was burning. Like,
No,
Better safe than sorry.
okay. Oh my God.
And then he became our pastor 20 years later.
Nice.
And he stood up there and he said, now, it was a new parish for him, and he says, but I see some familiar faces. There's Tim and Rozanne. I introduced them. I am not responsible for them having 7 children.
But anyway, that's one of those things that I never thought that was going to happen ever. So God works in strange ways.
Did you keep going to the singles group?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, because I had him to hide behind. I was very, very timid.
Yeah, once we started dating, I got her back in, and I got her into the choir.
And he got me playing baseball.
Yeah.
Okay, softball.
Oh, that was
I was
awful.
like the
That was
most unathletic person in the whole
Anybody
wide
know
world.
Lucy and Peanuts? Where she's standing there and the ball like hits behind her. That was, I was the coach of the team, and so I was sitting there going, okay, honey, all I gotta do, I'm the pitcher, so all you gotta do is stand behind home base, and then just get the ball back to me somehow, and just stay out of the way of the batters. And if any runner comes home, then I'll cover home. Okay, don't try to tag a runner out at home. So we're sitting there and practicing, and you know, so I'm taking it. It's like a 3-year-old going, "Okay, you ready now? Okay, catch it." She's going, makes like, okay, I'm gonna try to hit the glove this time. Don't move it. And it was, and then she like looked like I beat her to death. She had bruises.
Okay, I
all
have
over
a
her.
blood disorder.
She had we didn't know it at the time, but she has a clotting disorder. So I mean, when these things hit her with these big purple spots, and then we go out to, you know, play a game. And these people are sitting there going, "Rozanne, do you need to talk to? We do. You know,
Do we need to talk to Tim? Would we with the back?
yeah. Some of the guys are sitting there going, "You want to tell me how that happened? Because if it's what I think it is, I'm taking you out the back, you know."
And then he says, no, just watch it play.
And then she's like, you know, yeah. And then they're like going, "Okay, yeah, she's off, yeah." It was a long haul. But anyway. But it
I
was,
got good. I finally got good my 3rd year.
Nice.
yeah. And it was also funny that, because I can't remember anybody's name,
Right.
but I was known at St. Mary's. I did music in front of people for 17 years. They all knew who I was. So, you know, after we got married, we're walking down the hallway, whatever, and they come and go, "Hi, Tim, hi." And I couldn't introduce him because I didn't know what his name was. So she was, yeah, Tim and yeah.
By the time we left St. Mary's, I've been teaching CCD, or Sunday school, or whatever they call it now. And so we'd go down the hall, and all the kids would say, "Hi, Ms. Zomas."
So she got payback.
There were some kids I did the nursery before I taught CCD. And, you know, you get 3-year-olds, you play with them, you have good time, they love you. We were at the mall, and this little girl ran away from her parents, came over and hugged me and said, Rosie, you're here. And well, hi, Elizabeth, how are you? And her parents are looking at me like, who are you? And I said, St. Mary's.
Friend, really.
Friends of her, anyway.
So any questions? We didn't mean to get off, we did several questions, but didn't mean it to make it a Tim and Rozanne show.
Timothy, do we need to bind your brains?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Until I can get so angry about it.
All I can say is, if you absorb this, later on you'll go, "Oh, that's it." Okay, it's what it'll like. That's kind of how it'll work.
And then you'll avoid the big consequences.
Yeah, the consequences are bad.
Okay, so we've both been to Acts retreats. We both facilitated Acts retreats, and he was on one where there was a very young man amidst a bunch of much older men. And you sit around these tables and you talk about your experiences. And this one young man says, I've never seen or heard anything like this. And all the old men say, and we're telling you this so you can avoid being stupid. You know, so don't go out drinking every night when you're married. That's a bad thing. Don't spend the grocery money gambling. You know.
Don't try to get your way with your kids through force. It really works against you. Discipline is not the same as force. Discipline is more instilling self-control. And you do that by giving them consequences. So we had some very creative stuff. You know, I had a son that we homeschooled. And I had a son for practically the entire school year was telling Rozanne that he was keeping up on his math. And then she goes to check his work, and he hadn't done anything the whole year. He'd been lying. And she calls me, she's about to pop cork. And, you know.
Bloody murder is on the table.
Yeah, I mean, and I get home, and he's what, 14, something like that, and he's ready for me to spank him. And I'm
No, he
thinking,
was
when
12. He was 12.
okay, I said, he's getting too old. He's getting too old. So I gotta come up with something more creative. So, he came home, he says, Dad, are you gonna like do anything? I says, yeah, but I can't decide what I'm gonna do yet. And then when I do, I'm gonna tell you.
Okay, so then the sword
So
of
this-
Damocles is
Yeah, it's like,
over
it's
his
this
head.
hitting the pendulum. So it's like every day it's going by and he's like getting more and more nervous, and I can't think of anything. And I'm like praying. And it was math. I'm pretty sure it's math. So I said, you know what, Gary? When adults break laws, you get a fine and you get jail time. Okay? I can't put you in jail, but I can give you a fine. You gotta buy next year's math book. It was like $60. It was all the money he had in the world. And he was saving it for Christmas. And, he
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
and I'm just saying, I wanted to be serious. So I mean, he his jaw drops and all that, and it's like a day goes by, and I'm sitting out in the living room, and he comes out with his money and he hands it to me, and he walks back crying. He goes back to his room, and Rozanne just sitting there going, "You think he learned something?" He says, "I guarantee you, he learned something." So I waited about a week and gave him half back for good behavior. So he could at least buy Christmas presents. It wasn't the money, it was the fact that you got to get their attention.
I think you were getting there, but why do the global elites want to reduce the population?
That's the population bomb, and the people are still buying into it. That's never changed.
Don't you
Population is overpopulation. We're just billions, and we just keep growing and growing and growing. And they don't step back and look at anything. It's just like that's what they learned when they were. We have things in our culture, and again, this is my own term, but I call them the right answer. Okay, you're grilled by the media. You over and over. They give you a situation, and then they give you the answer, the answer, and we're conditioned by our schooling. The teacher comes up and she repeats stuff over and over and over again, and then it shows up on the test and you write it down. It's the right answer. Okay, overpopulation has been the right answer for an entire generation. Global warming is a right answer. Is it accurate? I don't think so. From the scientific view, I don't think so.
But don't you think these people in power are smarter than that and know that the population bomb book is incorrect?
Sure, but they think the people know it and you can control people.
Right.
This is to control. This is control.
Well,
Nobody
there's
in
also a
power is in
certain
power
amount-
except for control.
There's also a certain amount of cutting the pie. If the resources are finite, it's cutting the pie in smaller pieces, and I won't get enough. I mean, Bill Gates has to worry about getting enough, honestly.
Sometimes it's not money. Sometimes it's just prestige. You get a person that's in the news, loves the news. And when you're not in the news, it causes problems. How many Hollywood people commit suicide, or actors, whatever, entertainers end up committing suicide because they're not popular anymore. Or they drink themselves to death, or they drug themselves to death, or whatever. We've got such a mess, and it has always been here, but it has reached a focus through media that it's never had in the past. Toward the point it's global. It's no longer local or regional. It's global. And quite frankly, I find it very, very disturbing. So
Something I was thinking today is, we use taxes to either persuade or prevent somebody from doing some activity. And then I thought, birth control is used to prevent birth, so it has a consequence, and then from there, there's additional consequences to it that spread, like more sex before marriage and all the effects from it.
Well, there's even schizophrenia even in the elites. As I read someplace that the United Nations committee or whatever on population control, and then the one on basically the population collapse, there's another committee for that, studying that. They're on the same floor of the UN building. I mean, do you guys read each other's signs? I mean, what? You're talking about too many people, and these people are talking about too few people. Do you need to read each other's mail? I mean, what's going on? You know, how can that even be? But it is, because they don't. You know, we get blinders on, we get focused, and we just see our own little piece. And that's just human nature too. But think for yourselves, and for God's sake, pray. You know, God is in this thing, but He still gives us free will, and we've done a lot of really crappy things in just the last couple centuries. You know, there've been 2 world wars. We're on the brink of one right now, I'm afraid. I don't know that it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm praying it doesn't happen. But it only takes one idiot. Who knows what's going to happen?
Just kind of thinking about that too with the Nord Stream pipeline, and you know, we can look back at World War I, World War II, these big events, and it's like, that's not an accident. That is deliberate.
Hitler came to power because of the Reichstag fire. It was done by his own people, but he blamed the Jews, blamed the communists and the Jews so he could get power. And I love to tell people that Adolf Hitler did nothing illegal. There wasn't a single thing he did that was illegal, because he became a dictator with total autocratic control. So the Holocaust, totally legal. And the amazing thing is the majority of Germans supported it. They really did.
Okay, but at the same time, we saw those pictures of Auschwitz, the people having a party.
Right.
98% of all the guards at the death camps were alcoholic, because they could not stand what they were supporting, what they were doing. Like in China is not a Christian country. They keep saying over here that post-abortion syndrome is because of Christians, and they're shaming the people who've had abortion. They don't have that in China. They have forced abortions in China, and the women are still committing suicide because they're tearing apart their children, and the women can't live with it. Okay, so China's imploding because they've aborted their women, and then the ones they have, they abused through the forced abortions. So it's like, what is it now, 4 to 1?
I don't know. But
4 men to 1 woman. And the thing is, women don't become more precious as they become rare. They become assigned to that many men. So they are abused more. China's
And this
a mess,
is all
guys.
to build a utopia.
China's such a mess.
So, boy, this is just such a cheerful night.
We told
Okay.
our story.
Well, okay, yeah. There is, but in all of this mess, God is still working in it somehow. In all of this unbelievable, total crap, God is still in there. In the slums of Calcutta, the nastiest place with the worst government in the world, if you were born an untouchable, you were literally that. Nobody could touch you. And you were left on your own. Maybe you were just basically dregs with society. And one little nun goes in there and basically turns it around to the point to where the world takes notice. And India had to back off. They didn't do it publicly. They didn't do it where everybody could see it, but they did. Because one person. And then John Paul II was from Poland. In fact, he wrote Theology of the Body under communist rule. He didn't accept it. Anybody know what his first speech was, or first words he said when he became Pope? Be not afraid. And his whole papacy was built around that. Because he took on the communists in Poland and beat them. And if you ever get a chance to find it, there's a tape called 9 Days in Poland. 9 Days to Change the
9 days
World.
to change the world.
9 Days to Change the World. After he became Pope, he wanted to return to Poland. Well, Poland didn't want a Pope coming to Poland, okay? They're atheist. And they knew if he came, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. But they couldn't tell him he couldn't come. How can you tell a guy he can't return to his home country? Just because he's Pope. I mean, that's a worse political blunder than kicking him out. So he wanted 30 days. And they said, no, you can't have 30 days. So they gave him 9 days. Anybody know what 9 days is?
A novena.
It's a novena. So he basically came to Poland for a 9-day novena. And there is this one a marvelous scene in there where he comes in with his cardinals and he's addressing the head of Poland and his communist backers. And they look helpless. I mean, he's standing there, he's totally confident. He's got these guys around him, they're not afraid of anything. And these other guys look like petty bureaucrats. I mean, it's like they're trying to make this, they're trying to make themselves look big, but it's like, it's like a 3-year-old wearing his dad's clothes going, I'm a policeman, okay. It's just bizarre.
And then he has a mass service on the 9th day. And there are 3 million people in attendance. They had to have it in a field because at that time there was no place in Poland big enough. And so they're trampling crops and all this stuff, but they're there, and he essentially confirms 3 million people at one time. And that's when the Polish resistance was born.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. I mean, because I lived through it. I remember it. Yeah.
It's called what?
It's called 9 Days to Change the World. You'll find it probably through
Ignatius.
Ignatius Press.
Ignatius Press.
I love this story because I feel like it shows grace upon adversity. Because I think I forgot his whole background story, like his family story, but it was also really sad.
Very sad.
Oh yeah.
Like his
He was an
mom-
orphan by
Yeah.
the start of World War II.
Yeah, like his
He
family
lost everybody by the end.
died,
His brothers and
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like, and he was a worker in the I don't know, pits or something, rock pits or something. He was a laborer, a common laborer, and he was walking back in the evening, and he was hit by a truck, and they just left him for dead in the ditch. And he woke up several hours later and had to, nurse himself back home. And I mean, it was just like, And then when they get rid of the Nazis, the Russians move in. And they're burning down churches, tearing down crosses, doing all kinds of stuff. And the cardinal prelate at that time of Poland was Rozanne.
no. Midzensi.
Midzinski? Sure. Oh, yeah, anyway. But he was, another, just a fun story of, now it wasn't right at the start of it, but after John Paul II became cardinal, he was athletic, he loved to ski. And he was skiing up in Poland along the, I think it's not Sweden.
No.
It's one of the Nordic states borders, Finland. He's along the Finnish border. He skis over the border. He skis out of Poland into the West. And they chase him down and grab him and pull him back. And they said, they're going, you're trying to save me. He says, I was just skiing. He says, who are you? He says, well, I'm Cardinal Wojita, and they go, you're a Catholic cardinal? He goes, yeah. What are you doing skiing? He says, oh, come on. Half the cardinals in Poland ski.
There were only two.
There were two. Just how you phrase the question. I mean, I love John Paul II.
And he was a youth director for a long time, and they could not call him father because that would put an arrow, a target on him. So they called him uncle.
I've got to make a run, so I'll keep telling stories.
One fun time.
Oh, no. Sorry, triggered the mom.
That was an interesting dichotomy where Tim was talking about punishing your son, and all the women, felt bad, oohed for the son.
Well, they felt sorry for him losing all his money, but
Yeah.
I assure you, if they had been his mother, they would have been going, and he has to dig ditches, and he has to clean out the barn all by himself. He's doing dishes by himself for a month. This was my idea. I was so mad.
I've got a story about my grandparents. So, my grandma wanted a dishwasher. And my grandpa said something really bad. He said we already have one. He was talking about her.
Oh.
And then so she said, okay, yes we do. You're doing the dishes from now on. And she did not do another dish the rest of her life.
Oh,
No.
wow. Okay, let me see, what's his name? Marcel Lejeune. He is a person who also promotes theology of the body. And he talked about how he hated doing dishes growing up. I mean, it was like, he hated it. And he went to college, he said, it was the best time of my life. I showed up at the cafeteria, I ate, I threw my dishes over there, and they did them. It was just marvelous. He says, and then I got in this relationship, and we went to restaurants, and we just ate, and left our dishes and walked away. It was great. And he said, then we got married, and we had to eat at home. And then we had a baby, and my wife was standing there, and she was so big she could hardly reach the sink. And he said, that's really too bad. He said, and then my guardian angel took a baseball bat, hit me in the back of the head. He said, and I came up to her and I hugged her and I said, sweetheart, go put your swollen ankles up. I will get the dishes. He says, and I did the dishes for the rest of her pregnancy. And then when she came home and her stomach was small and she could fit in front of the sink again, she started doing the dishes. And I came into the kitchen and I said, woman, what are you doing in front of my sink?
You get out of my kitchen. I haven't done that a lot. I did put a dishwasher. And that was hard. That was a lot of work.
Well, we had Davey by the time we got the
Yeah, we were like, a long time.
we've been
Well, how long did we
married-
go without having an air conditioner?
Oh.
I mean, we had a swamp cooler. Everybody's going, you work on air conditioners and you don't have one at home? Well, I don't want to work on one when I get home.
We didn't have an air conditioner until we had
2000.
Davey.
We got the
Yeah.
air conditioner a year or two after we got the pool. Because I could use the pool. Never mind, it's complicated.
Yeah, all those pregnancies. That's swamp cooler. And then, when we had 4 kids, we moved out to where we are now. And I went from a really nice kitchen and a really nice bathroom to a wooden tent.
It was all we
And
could afford.
My kitchen cabinets were this long and the sink took up this much.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I had absolutely no room to cook. And Tim is not a person who encourages self-pity. And we had a friend come in after the pro-life march, and I was feeding, we had 5 kids then, and they had 7. And so they crowded into our tiny little house. And the husband said, Rozanne, you are a grace-filled woman to feed this many people in this kitchen. And Tim says, don't tell her that!
Worked as hard as I could. Of course, the other thing, this was something too. Now, okay, when we got married, before we got married even, when we talked about kids, we never fought about money. We never fought about anything except children. Because I was from a family of 15.
Surely he knew how great it was.
I didn't want any kids. I wanted 0 children. She was from a family of 9 and wanted 12. So I knew she was kidding. And she knew I was kidding, and neither one of us was. So all of our fights are, you don't spend enough time with the kids, and let's have another. We fought on it all the time. That's our only arguments.
101, 102,
2,
103.
103, yeah, it's on and on and on and on. Up into the graduate level. I mean, we were.
And we did finally reach an uneasy peace on that. You know.
I thought we were gonna get there at 6. I mean, that's a tie, right? That's halfway. We have 7. See, still is. But somewhere along the line, God basically, well, first of all, I come to find out kids aren't the holy terror that I thought they were, but they are like 2 steps below it. And the other thing was, the reason I didn't want a big family is I didn't want her to die. Because I was conditioned that too many kids will kill the mother. So when she started having 3 and 4, especially when she started having problems, I was petrified. I mean, and if we'd have known about her bleeding condition before we'd had all of her kids, I don't know that I would have made it through those pregnancies very well.
I should not have been able to have children. But remember those crazy hormones that would go like this? They said, pregnancy, hormones. Birth, hormones. So instead of gushing blood, my hormones said, womb. And all those crazy veins would just cut right off and tighten up, and I was fine. And I was going, la 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 la. I got a baby. He's been greatly tried, people. But he's come through it. And he still laughs.
I probably laugh more than I used to.
You laugh a lot more than you used to.
You know, they probably gonna want to eat. Oh, you guys were eating food, haven't you? Yes. Okay.
They probably want to go home and do
They might
that.
want to go home and do something. I mean, I really enjoyed this because I didn't intend to turn to the Tim and Rozanne show, but still, we did. But that's part of. Everybody has a story. How many people here, anybody here been on Acts retreat? We were talking about it. There's 1,
Does
2.
the teen Acts retreat count?
Yep, sure does. Okay. Of course, I need to talk about my first Acts retreat.
Just the going part.
Yeah, just the going part. They started having these things, and I mean, you know, I'm really old, so like I was before Acts. And then they started having these things, and she's going, "When are you going to? Why don't you go to the Acts retreat?" I don't want to go. And then, you know, the next year it'd come up and go, "I really think you need to go to the Acts retreat." And I go, "No, I don't think so." And then, you know, she's just going on and on and on and on. And she goes, "Well, why do you not want to go on an Acts retreat?" And I says, "Look, I just want to go. We can't afford it." She goes, "Well."
No, what's the other thing? What's the other thing?
I can't afford it.
I'm not gonna get anything out of
We
it.
can't afford it. I don't have the time, and we're not going to get anything out of it anyway, probably. So I don't really want to go. And she goes, "Well, I already bought your ticket, it's non-refundable, and happy birthday. She bought me a ticket for my birthday. Yeah, and I love it. We go in and all these guys, at that time they were wearing rainbow suspenders, and they're walking around hugging each other and, with slapping you. I am so out of here. One of these guys even comes close to me, I'm decking him.
I dropped him off.
And
Said,
drove away.
Here's your suitcase, see it on Sunday. And drove away, I didn't stay for send off or anything.
So anyway, it was, but I ended up.
And then, that was in October. So then the spring comes around, the spring ladies.
Was it that fast?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And he says, I
It's
think
time
we
for
need
you
to
to-
go to an Acts retreat. And I said, honey, we cannot afford it. I do not have time, and I probably won't get anything out of it. And I go, did I say that? Did I really say that? Okay, I'm going.
Yeah, so.
Acts retreats are very powerful experiences. And there's a lot of demonic activity against them. The one that I went on, first one that I worked, we had a lady fall down the stairs and break her ankle. And another lady spent these are presenters, they would stand up and give their testimonies. And another lady spent the entire weekend in her room puking. And they both had incredibly powerful testimonies. I mean, I told the story of our marriage, and but these women dealt with tremendous trauma, and I was the light and easy one, so I went first. But Esther finally gets up there, and she's got her little knee scooter, and she's giving her talk, and she's exhausted. The pain has just totally exhausted her, but she stood up there and she did it. And the other, Kathy was the lady in the bathroom, in her room, so sick, and she got up there. She's parchment, bags under her eyes, her hair is just like, I've never seen her look so bedraggled, because she's one of these, makeup, hair. And she got up there and she told her testimony, and her testimony was heart-wrenching. And she got just the teeniest little bit of tears telling us this story, and we're all but so they're very, very powerful. And if you've been on teen ones, and those are great, go to it as an adult, because it's a totally different experience. And they have started having them at the Bishop DeFalco Center again.
But it's there. These are
Okay,
things.
and another thing to say, when he came home.
I knew you were gonna say that.
When he came home from the Acts retreat, he was the person I thought he was when I married him. The disillusionment part of our relationship was pretty big.
Well, we were kind of in a quasi uneasy peace and drifting back and forth, and it would be like at good times and slide back. And of course, one of the deals was I was working half to death.
Yeah.
But all I can say is, life is a struggle, and sometimes it can be really hard.
And don't
God's
expect
in it
it
with
to be
you.
easy. Please don't expect it to be easy, because you're just setting yourself up for a fall.
There's somebody to make sure it's not going to be easy if you're going to follow Christ.
Even if you're not going to.
It doesn't say pick up your cross daily and follow me for no reason.
And don't jump on each other's cross.
Don't take your cross and nail somebody else up to it either.
Don't beat somebody else over the head with your cross.
Of course, there's also, they say that marriage is penitential, and the spouse is the other one's hair shirt.
Wake up in the morning and say, good morning,
Good morning, hair shirt. I don't know, do you ever do how God works with couples? You got the man, you got the woman. Oh God. Getting better, yeah, and a little more work there, just knocking the rough edges off, making them fit. After a while, if you cooperate, if you let God work in your life, even when things don't look like they're working, they are. That's all I can really say.
One of the things that I've always said that made our marriage work is I can live with things that aren't perfect, and he fixes things that are broken.
You also say that the rocks in my head fit the holes in yours.
I say that too.
I got a lot of stubbornness, had a lot of stubbornness. But those wounds, that I took into our relationship caused problems. They just do. When I finally realized they were there, then I could deal with them. It's when you don't know they're there that's a problem. And it's also something I've never had one, but I've heard people talk about it, getting a spiritual director. Having somebody to look, you say, okay, I want to do this. No, don't do that. But,
something else. Healing retreats. Healing retreats are amazing. I told you when we got married, I was a very, very shy person. I went to a healing retreat and it was like, you're looking at me.
the first 35 years of marriage, you were very
first 35 years of marriage was like this. And I found out that I've been terrified of snakes to the point of like almost crashing on the road because I see one dead on the side of the road. I had no idea that was a wound. I went to the first healing retreat and it was like, oh, snake. I thought, who am I? Why is this me? They're great. I go to this exercise, right? I'm late. So I sneak in back and I'm sitting down. I'm very quiet. And they say, okay, for this exercise, the Holy Spirit is going to call someone up and they're going to sit in this chair and we're going to look at them and
about
say what
1,000
we see.
people.
You're gonna look at them and what?
We're going to look at them and we're going to say what we see. And I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And they said, okay, come on, person. I said, yeah, person, get up there. And they said, this person is fighting the Holy Spirit. And I thought, that's disgraceful. And then I went, nobody's getting up. Oh, no, God, no. No. And Bert goes, come on, person. The Holy Spirit's working on you, I can tell. Okay, and I said, I would rather walk barefoot on broken glass than be sitting in this chair at this time. And he said, oh, this is going to be fun. And it was the most healing thing that I have ever experienced up to that point. And so then.
So, okay, I gotta take off from here. So I'm not there. I'm meeting her later on at St. Thomas. After they have this thing, they're gonna come over and do a thing at St. Thomas in the evening. So I'm going over there waiting for him, and the couple of the sisters,
Sister Mary Michael.
Sister Mary Michael and one of the other sisters come up to me and go, well, Tim, what do you think about Rozanne? And I'm going, what do I think about Rozanne? I don't know. Says, oh, you don't know about it yet? No. Oh, well, then we'll let her tell you. And they walked away. You know, I'm sitting there going, that was interesting. And then the guys that are like running the thing, they come in, and I think they called me over or something.
Stephanie.
Like, was it Stephanie was with them? Yeah, Stephanie said, they go, Tim, come over here, and I want you to meet da-da-da-da-da-da, because this is Tim, it's Rozanne's husband. She goes, oh, well, what do you think, huh? What'd you think about that? I go, I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't seen her? No. And then Rozanne comes walking up and go, what is it? What are you, pregnant? What? Everybody's congratulating me, and I don't know what it, and that was what it was, because the people that knew her, they're sitting there going, Rozanne is walking up. Are you kidding me?
Spoke in the microphone.
This woman knows every Christmas song forever.
Now,
Lives,
let me
eats,
tell this
yes,
one.
I gotta tell this story. Lives, eats, and breathes Christmas, okay? So, Christmas midnight mass, I lose my voice. And I do the music. I was doing the music at St. Martin's.
This is pre-healing retreat.
Well, yeah, but anyway, I lose my voice, just laryngitis. And we had this guy, Ronnie Johnson, loved to sing. So I thought, well, no problem. I'll just play the guitar. When he comes in, I'll have him sing. So he comes in and goes, Ronnie, I need your help. I can't sing. He goes, oh, I can't either. Oh, no. You know, Christmas midnight mass, and we don't have a singer. So I said, honey, come here. You got to sing. She goes, what? No, I can't sing. I go, yeah, it's Christmas carols, okay? You know the Christmas carols. There's 4 of them. I guess. Well, I'll make it easy. All you got to do is just sing in the mic. So I get it on playing, and I like take the mic up right here, and she's going like, how do you got to sing louder? So I take the mic and move it like right here. She goes, the closer the mic got, the quieter she got. And everybody's coming out at the end and going, I couldn't hear any singing. He goes, no, neither could I. I was standing right next to her. But she wouldn't even sing. We're in the back of church. It's not
Josh
like...
is my witness. I still do not sing in public.
Oh, yeah, you did.
But anyway, that's... And here I'm the singer, Mr. Flamboyant, and you were like a complete opposite. It was just amazing.
When we would introduce ourselves at our marriage enrichment, we'd go like this. He'd say, I'm Tim Omis, and I'd be going, I'm Rozanne.
She would. There goes, Rozanne, you want to give me a stay? Nope. You need to like get a nope. So anyways, it's just, in fact, I've had so many people saying, how did you guys ever get together? You're so different. So they're going, it's a long story. And I mean, we've had people much later, come up to Rozanne and said, when Tim first married you, I didn't see what he saw in you. And then when you got pregnant with your first baby, you just glowed. And I'm going, yeah, but I saw that glow all along.
Well, this man talked to me after I'd had my 4th child, and he says, I really did not see what he saw in you. He says, but you have become more beautiful with every child you have had. And I thought, 12 more, I should make it.
Cha-ching. So, oh. We really need to let y'all go.